the saying is, for those who ride motorcycles, there are those who have spilled and those who will spill. And cybersecurity is the same way. There are those who have been hacked and those who will be hacked. So my goal and our goal as a company, personally, is to always stay one step ahead and to bring the tools to bear that will protect people's identity, people's finances, and their reputations.
Today, we have an incredible guest on the show, Brian Masterson, a visionary with a unique ability to connect with people through the heart and a cybersecurity expert with an impressive background in the United States Air Force, Fortune 500 companies, and startups. Brian's mission is nothing short of heroic. He aims to be a savior for others by providing cybersecurity protection to individuals and families, ensuring their safety and trust in an increasingly interconnected world. In this episode, you're in for a treat as we dive deep into the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity. We'll explore the challenges that individuals and companies face in safeguarding their identities, finances, and reputations in the digital age. With Brian's wealth of knowledge and expertise in the field, he'll shed light on the importance of staying vigilant and implementing essential cybersecurity measures. Brian is also passionate about education. He believes in empowering people with the knowledge to protect themselves online. Through his online course and webinars, he seeks to create awareness and encourage individuals to take proactive steps in safeguarding their digital profiles. Stay tuned as Brian shares practical tips for enhancing your cybersecurity, protecting your personal information, and ensuring a secure online presence. What sets him apart is his commitment to approach this critical topic without resorting to fear-mongering, fostering a positive and empowered mindset towards cybersecurity.
I'm here with a very good friend of mine, Brian Masterson, and I want to put my glass on, Brian, because you've got quite a bio here. I know everyone knows you as a visionary who connects with people through the heart, but I know you also served the United States Air Force as a missile launch officer. I know you've worked in Fortune 500 companies as a sales leader, and as well as startup companies. But I think what you're really known for is as a cybersecurity expert. I know you're a certified business coach, an executive coach, and certified exit planner, certified Tony Robbins life coach. I know you spent time in China in graduate school. I mean, you've got a resume that we take up the entire podcast. Just, I don't get too many guys that have like 6 pages of resume, but you happen to be one of them. I'd rather get to know you, the man. But I always like, by starting, our podcast, I call it the Hero of the Hour, because I always like to have people on the podcast who are either heroes to me or heroes to other people. And you clearly, are one of those. So I'd just love to ask you, who's a hero to you, or how do you define a hero?
Yeah, Mark, by way of introduction, hello, everyone, and greetings from Park Ridge, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. Yeah, I saw the other podcast, and this question comes up to everybody, and I knew it was coming my way. And I thought about my grandfather taking a cattle boat back to Ireland, and my parents coming over. And ultimately, I thought, the biggest hero of my life was a Greek man named Harry Ordeos, who gave me my first job. And he served from the heart. And he was classy. He is classy. So everything he did was with a high standard, had people in mind. But at the end of the day, it was always about family. And I think I've taken that with me as I've seen and found success. But when I work with people, I always remember that we're dealing with people who have families and who have, work. At the end of the day, you go home to your family. So everything that I'm doing in cybersecurity is knowing that it's not only for the individual. So I'm in personal cybersecurity protection, but I want to make sure that the man or husband, rather, man, wife, husband, whatever it is, feels safe, and that their children are safe, and that they know who to turn to. So my attempt is to really be a hero to people, so that they trust me, and they trust my team to help them solve their cybersecurity issues.
Well, as I said, I think that just on Facebook alone, I find that I probably have about 2 to 3 friends literally a day being hacked. Where you get that message like, please don't respond to it. I've been hacked. You know, and myself, I have been the target of at least a dozen times of cybersecurity, including one time where I lost and was not able to recover almost $50,000 from a cybersecurity threat. And so I'm just saying, I think everybody who's watching this podcast is been affected by it personally, or they're being phished. They've had someone in their family affected by it. But I'd love just to hear from you as an expert on the subject. Just tell me a little bit about the evolving landscape in cybersecurity. First of all, maybe it's take a minute for people really not up to speed. Just give me kind of your quick down and dirty definition of cybersecurity, and then kind of tell us how, where we are, but where's the evolving landscape.
Yeah, thanks. When Al Gore invented the internet back in the 80s, or whoever invented it, it was just really an open communication between government agencies. That's started with email, and going back and forth as the email became more prevalent in the 90s. People started being more clever with putting money out there and building their businesses. And we saw before the .com go down, people started buying website domains, and so we started living online. And it really, that's where we all have a persona out there, whether we know it or not. And there are people out there who are looking to take advantage of our innocence and our ability to help other people. And we've trusted banks and put our money and transacted money out there, where we've trusted sites like Target, for example, who've been hacked. And so our level of trust in these institutions is very high, whereas they're just scrambling. Companies are scrambling to keep up with the threats. There are actually factories of people in places like the Ukraine and Russia that have 9 to 5 people who show up in an office, and their job is to hack people in the United States on Facebook, on Instagram. And meanwhile, we're at work in doing our normal job, which is ethical and legal. So the space is it's very challenging for companies. The average tenure of a person they call a chief information security officer is 18 months. So I sat in a number of these meetings with these folks, sold them technology. And it was never about the people, the individual. It was always about how fast is this device and what can this do? And I thought to myself, what if I brought this technology to individuals, or just this mindset of helping people? Now we have Chat GPT, which is on the horizon, with artificial intelligence. So how do we protect it? Mark, it's like the saying is, for those who ride motorcycles, there are those who have spilled and those who will spill. And cybersecurity is the same way. There are those who have been hacked and those who will be hacked. So my goal and our goal as a company, personally, is to always stay one step ahead and to bring the tools to bear that will protect people's identity, people's finances, and their reputations.
I have to laugh when you say that, because I was going to say that the motorcycle analogy is so brilliant, because when I was in college, there was one motorcycle in a fraternity house, and it had at least 6 or 7 owners. And the previous owner was always somebody that got pretty banged up driving around a little too cool on campus, and gave it to the next moron who would then get into a major accident. Nobody died, but a couple came close. And I think the analogy to cybersecurity, it's just a matter of time, but you've got to be vigilant, do everything you can to protect yourself. And I know that's what you do.
Yeah. So we'll start, for example, on a very basic level. We'll ask people, hey, let's protect your home. Make sure everything that's connected to your internet is locked down, whether it's your refrigerator, your thermostat, and make sure no one's trying to get in there. And then make sure all the devices that all the kids have that are locked down, make sure there's antivirus on there. Make sure that all your credit is frozen with the all of the three major bureaus. Make sure you have a password manager, which is an arduous task. Put everything in a dual factor authentication. So there's a lot of, let's make sure baseline that you're all set. Then there's the education component where I'm regularly inviting different guests into the conversation who are experts on cryptocurrency and NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens. Things keep evolving. But then there's also, I partner with a lady who works specifically with families and how to keep people and their kids safe online. Her own child was actually hacked. And so this hits very close to home. And I have a client who was able to protect from you called ransomware, where you lost $50,000. This client had just bought a company, and there was somebody who got right in the middle of that wire transfer. And the fact that we had put a identity protection and an identity theft monitoring, and we also had started monitoring social media accounts, we were able to identify really quickly that someone had got into the system, and it was a $10 million save. Now, would the bank pay it back? Maybe, probably, but the headaches, this takes years. When people have to go through this headache of getting their money back or their identity, it takes a long time. So I say, hey, let's be vigilant in the front. What I'm trying to bring, Mark, is the same vigilance that we have and had when I was an Air Force officer. If there's a standard of excellence when you're going to go to nuclear war, that everything is locked down. There's perfection, and the basics are covered, and whatever may come will come. But if we're not making sure that the simple things that we can do to lock down our emails and our home networks and things like that, or our social media accounts, if we're not doing that, then we're lazy and we're inviting ourselves into trouble. So the other thing I'll say is that my goal is to be a person of the light here, because there's a lot of fear mongering in this space, Mark, and it doesn't have to be, because this is our world, the world that we live in. We all have the phones in our pockets, and that's not going away anytime soon. So let's just have an honest conversation about how we protect that, and how we protect people's dreams. Like what you guys are building the dreams as financial advisors, how do we protect those dreams?
Well, I think that's just as important. I mean, what a shame if people's wealth, it's so violating when that occurs. Having it happen to me, and it was so violating to see $50,000 of my hard-earned money disappear. And I spoke to my lawyers, and they said, if you sue the bank, you'll probably win, but you have to pay me $75,000 to collect your 50. So it, because they, it just was very unsatisfying.
So you never got it back. Sorry.
No.
Never.
And I'm being fished daily. That's why even when people in our business, even when people ask for money, they say, they have money with us, and the people have gotten so good at hacking emails that they will replicate a conversation like we know each other. Something that only you and I would know. Like, oh, it was great going fishing with you last week, or it was fun being at the Knick game, last night or something. And then say, oh, but in fact, we just bought a new car. My wife, we need $50,000. We just send it to us. And we never respond to that. We pick up the phone, we call you and go, hey, Brian, we just got this email or this text from you saying you need $50,000. And you'll say, yeah, that was me. That's great. Could you get it over here? We're buying a new car. That's 9 out of 10 times. The 1 out of 10 times, it's not you. So, we deal with this literally every day in our business with the phishing from other people. Changing the subject a little bit for a minute. I think most people think of IT as an expense. I know you think of it more as part of about a different type of role in terms of business success. Why don't you tell people what you mean by that? Why is it not an expense? Why is it critical to many people's the success of their businesses?
Yeah, it's that became a topic with boards, board of directors in Fortune 500 companies, where they realized that it can actually not be a profit center necessarily. Instead of an expense, it's something that is an enabler. If we're spending the money here, preventing a as you had mentioned, $75,000 in legal fees. To save, these companies are getting hacked at the tune of, the average hack for a Fortune 500 company is $2 million easily. And so what they're spending is typically 5% of their budget on in IT. So they've said, hey, 5% of the revenue. So they just started upping these things and realizing, like, hey, if we put more money into these things, it's not an expense. It's an enabler to allow people to move more freely, around. IT and cyber can be fun, Mark. It's not a dark topic. I have someone who is into emotional intelligence. He's an emotional intelligence expert, and he said it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs now. He said he believes it should be in the bottom part of the pyramid, where cyber is, you have your food and your clothing, you have cybersecurity. It's like we need this now. And then as we go up the pyramid, we may find a time where we're zen and we don't want any of this. And there are different people who I meet who want to be Luddites, which is no technology at all. And some who are just, this is the world I live in, like you, who, people are always connected with you. You get out your cell phone and you speak, you're out there. And I say, people like Mark, he has to have protection on who he is. Otherwise, someone will open up a Facebook or an Instagram pretending they're Mark if Mark does not. So we have to make sure Mark, if he's out there, let's just make sure he's covered, and be very smart about where we're transacting money. But you are asking about why it's not an expense, and it's more of it's a basic need now. So this is like you get a laptop from a company, and I say with families, let's have these conversations, and it's evolving more into behavior. So I think when I'm talking to folks, when I'm talking to mothers, especially, my kids' heads down into my phone, and that's where the coaching side of me comes out, and we start to realize it really lends itself very well, because then it becomes a very heart-driven conversation. Quite frankly, when I'm doing the onboarding stuff, which is, how many computers do you have and how many laptops? And, somebody once told me, Brian, the job you're in is like going to the mechanic. I hate doing it. I said, yeah, but once you get to the mechanic and you kind of realize you could drive this kind of car and that kind of car, driving can be fun. Like if you're driving that car and it's high performing, and the brakes are working, the engine's tuned up, let's make sure your sports car, let's get you into something that's fun. And so that's, you got a sports car out there. We want to make sure that baby is running, those brakes are working. So the heart part of this conversation is very, very powerful. I'll just continue if I may. I know I always like to stop and pause and get you just one more story. Is it?
Please go ahead, please.
I have 21 nieces and nephews, and there's a range of, who's on technology and who's face down, in phones, and they're always in their phone. And but we're looking at just how does that affect, the brain. We know it doesn't stop evolving to age 23. And so what is this technology, done for us in terms of dopamine? And so I'm talking with people beyond just protecting. It's when the conversation comes, we'll have a quarterly conversation, the clients they have in the families, and say, this quarter, we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence in your family and how to maybe release the dopamine and maybe get the head out of the phone into something else. So it's a lot of fun when we're talking, using technology and cybersecurity as an enabler versus a hindrance.
Right. No,
you never thought I would say this could be fun, did you?
No. I mean, I think it's. I just think of it quite a threat. How do people? Because this is pretty new. Like, it's like it almost like was when people were talking about like wireless deals 25 years ago or 30 years ago. It was like a new industry. Nobody had 30 years of experience because it didn't exist in the 1960s. I'm thinking, it's the same thing here. How do you help people create awareness around it? And I know you focus a lot on, because Fortune 1000 companies, they're spending more and more and more of their budgets to protect their companies. But people are not really protecting themselves. I mean, even some of those executives are the ones getting hacked, even though they've spent, hundreds of millions of dollars protecting their businesses. They didn't protect themselves. So how do you create that awareness?
Yeah, we've done, we have done and are doing like really grassroots in terms of Facebook and Instagram, like just at the very basic level of educating through webinars. Created an online course where families for $4.97, it's like very inexpensive. People can go and learn about the basics of cybersecurity. And there's like I said, it's a grassroots effort to get it out there and get it in front of people. I think the other thing really what's important is that I have quite a few podcasters who are, podcasters who are getting it out to people like yourself, just saying, hey, in my community, and it's not only financial, but it's also, business people who are doing, creating websites and folks who are creating, dog walking businesses who have podcasts and women who are like quilters. I'm on these really interesting, I've been invited to very interesting podcasts, realtors, for example. So it's working in different realms and different spaces. Now, it just so happens that I've been working a lot with entrepreneurs and higher net worth folks who feel like they have more to lose. The reality is everyone has, our bank account is our bank account. So it doesn't matter if it's, $100 or if it's $100 million. So I want to start at, a very grassroots level and let's get it out and let people know there is somebody to turn to. Or there's a course that's out there, or there's a book that you can point you to. Because as a cyber advisors,
how much?
I don't have
a challenge always time and attention. So if people go on your website and look at that video, how much time are they committing to doing that? How long is
each module is 20 minutes or so.
So bite-sized stuff.
Yeah, and it's self-paced. And some people may have questions about. They come out and say, "Well, what about cyber insurance? Do I need this or?" Do I need that? But yeah, it's very easy, and it's really number one. How do I protect my identity online? How do I protect my home? How do I protect myself online? How do I protect my kids online? I've been hacked. What do I do? And then for the advanced folks out there with cryptocurrencies, what do I do if I have cryptocurrency? Things like that. So it's really just giving some basic ideas. And a lot of times, Mark, I'll point people in the right direction, or I'll try to point people in the right direction. I'll say, hey, we don't have all the answers because there's so many things, so many moving parts, but I just want to be a trusted advisor and earn people's trust to have that opportunity.
The other thing I think is, I think there's a great awareness in, let's call it the large company marketplace. But I think one of the things, I'm in a regulated business. And so I take cybersecurity very seriously because I think, forget just having a compliance issue. When you're protecting people's information, as virtually anybody who takes a credit card does, much less somebody who has people's financial information, dates of birth, driver's license, et cetera, you've got to take that seriously. But I think you're going to start to see, or more and more lawsuits, or more and more, people coming, after the folks that have not done the right job at protecting. It's not only a nuisance thing that you've lost money, or it takes you months and months and years to get money back or to get your identity back. I mean, that is a nightmare in itself, but you might even be negligent because you didn't do the right thing.
Yeah. So and you're saying for myself, negligence, or the company?
The company negligence. There's a lot of, I think, small and mid-sized businesses that don't think, they have the resources to do it, or they don't know much about it, or they don't think that they have a sort of a fiduciary or a legal responsibility to protect the information of their customers.
Yeah, it's the hey, it won't happen to me syndrome. It'll happen to thee, but not me.
Mm-hmm.
And so your point or your question earlier is how do you evangelize and really teach people that just recently a mutual friend you introduced me to this gentleman. It was had a login issue where somebody was potentially stealing $2 million, and his login was what he had been using since high school. And what we find is by sharing these very simple stories with people, like people who have a lot of money in the bank are using very simple logins, and I think it's really where I turn. Where I turn for advice is very important, and people don't know where to turn. But I've seen on a Sunday morning, a good friend, I was golfing with him last year, and his phone started getting blown up with phone calls from a BMW dealership. And somebody had leased 2 cars in Missouri. He's in Illinois. And then by the afternoon had gone to the Apple store and purchased 5 Apple phones while we're scrambling. I mean, this is happening real time. I'm a cyber guy. But when it's happening, there's nothing that you can do. It's happening so fast. And he had never locked down his credit, and he had never purchased a tool such as LifeLock, not endorsing them, but just something along those lines. And so there is a bit of evangelizing. And now within his circle of business professionals, we have conversations, and I'm invited to speak to private equity folks, for example, and people that they're working with and their families. But it usually comes down to the families. I'm most interested in making sure that, hey, you have these things locked down, for your child or for your wife, and you can feel comfortable when you go on vacation or when you're down in Florida, like, when you're down at your place in Florida, that you feel, hey man, everything is good to go. I'm living my best life here. So,
why don't you tell people who are watching this kind of a little bit how you, I read your, at least a piece of your bio when we first came on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, what your company is doing right now, and who do you do it for, and what do you do, and tell us where you're going with it.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that it started as an idea to just protect people with tools that Fortune 500 companies are using. And I was approached by I was on board of directors with a doctor, and she said, Brian, my Amazon account was hacked. What should I do? And boy, I looked at her. I said, well, change the password. I already did that. And get a new computer. Well, I did that. And so I didn't have a great answer for her. And in that moment, I remember I talked to my wife that night, and I said, I need to have a better answer for people when they ask me, what should I do? And, how do I change a password? So that's the evolution of the Cyber Advisor, is that I wanted to have better answers for people and individuals when things like passwords and Instagram. So now one of my customers, his Instagram was hacked, and we helped him get access back. So focusing on protecting online digital profiles. So as a company, it's we want to protect your home, lock that down, but we also want to protect your name that's out there on the internet. I don't know how often you Google yourself, Mark. You probably do it, your team does it, but there are probably many things. So we work with data brokers to get your name off the internet. We'll also from an education part. Yeah, it's a terrific service. Just to let you know who's out there and where your name shows up. Because if we go to whitepages.com, if people go right now, and you can type in someone's name. You can find celebrities. I don't even know they're on white pages. So we're educating people on locking those things down. So as a company, where are we going? Is very simply starting at a very basic educational component. Here's what's happening in cyber. And if you're looking for more guidance, we can help you lock these things down or point you in the right direction to lock things down. So it's kind of two ends of the spectrum, just an educational component and then a service component. Because I work with on my team are current or former Fortune 500 people. So I have a right-hand person who is a current Fortune Chief Information Security Officer. His company allows him to be part of my team. And so I am tapping into the latest, greatest thinking on what's the technology that we need and what's the education. So when I talk to people like you who are out in the field, what do people want to hear about? And maybe it's for their business, but for their family. Because I'm most interested in the heart side of the conversation. I don't know, maybe that sounds a little gooey or touchy or feely.
I mean, I look at, I'm worried about cyber hacking. I'm worried about financial theft. I'm also worried about reputational theft. And the other thing too is it's also amazing how much information people have about you. I mean, it was it was just a laugh when I was single that you'd have a drink or two with somebody and on like a first date, and they would let them they knew stuff about you that was like oh my, not that it was just like wow, they'd did they have the FBI research me? I'm surprised they didn't come with a urine sample and a tax return.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The people are putting out there on social. I want to tell a story of working with a family where there was a roster put out on the soccer team for the 7th grade girls soccer team, and it was on a Google sheet, and it got into the hands of a 38-year-old man who pretended that he was one of the 7th grade girls. And he started Google chatting this girl, and it got to the point where hey, why don't you like me? And there was a little bit of cyberbullying.
That's sick.
And so I got involved in the conversation, really as just towards the end of this, and we were able to not only get the local police involved, but get the FBI involved, to not only find out that, how did he get access to the sheet? Well, somebody posted it on Facebook. And so, we're teaching people, you got to be smart, Mark, about putting people's information, like you were saying. Once you put things out there, be very careful about putting pictures out there. I have a policy that I've asked my wife not to put our kids' pictures out there on Facebook or anywhere, just right now, because people will say, hey, I'm on vacation here. And I've seen it happen. People will come to me, I'll get a phone call. My house has been burglarized because I posted on Facebook where I was at. And it's happened, many times. So from a very basic level, don't be posting things out there, lock things down. So we have webinars and seminars and things like that. So as a company, it's really, increasing the number of webinars to let people know. And I do that through, posts on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Say, here's an upcoming information webinar on this topic. And so I'll have an expert speak on that topic. So, it's
let me just say, one of the things that I encourage everybody to do who's listening to this or watching this is, I think very, very astutely, you've created your own quiz. It's 5 simple questions about cybersecurity, and they can go on your website to see if they're, basically just to gauge their cyber, security called hygiene. So just give us, how can people reach you? How can people take that quiz? Brian, tell us a little bit about, about where folks can reach you.
Yeah. So my website is CybVisor, which is CYBVISOR.com, CybVisor.com. And I'll give my phone number, 312-714-8936. And the quiz itself is, are you susceptible to identity theft? And for example, do you have an identity theft service that you're working with? Identity protection, financial protection. So there are many that are out there with the credit bureaus. And there's some questions in social media and, your level of lockdown and security on social media. And there's a playful question about, phone numbers and addresses. I have a client who his wife was she used to be in the film industry, and there were people outside of his house on Christmas Day. And they had posted, things out there, on social media. And I said, you got to pull those things off there, man. And we got the police to get people out of there. But some of these questions that I ask on the quiz are tied to things that I've seen, what you're posting and who you're posting them with. And so we like to just get an idea of how much have you invested into, your password protection. My wife invited me to her new office a couple of years ago. This was last year during COVID. And she showed me her desk, and her passwords were all on a Post-it note. And I said, darling, I'm in the cybersecurity business. You can't be doing that. So one of the questions is like, what are you doing with your passwords? Because there's so many out there, and everyone I speak to, and it's arduous task, even for myself, right? What are we doing with those, right, Mark, with those passwords? And how often are we changing them? So just having a bit of fun and getting an idea of what people can do, and maybe pointing them in the right direction towards, here are some things that you can be doing differently. And then go on your way. Just, live your life. You'll get a text if you can set limits on your phone now with these companies that over $100, I'm notified. So just go on your way, but let's protect it. Let's not be afraid of this stuff. Like, let's embrace it. Let's have fun. And, know that you're working with good people. There are a lot of good people out there who are in this business that really, really want to help.
Well, all I can say is I think that your service, I think the service in general, are relatively inexpensive for what they protect, and not big ticket items. And so I just say anybody who's watching this, I'd like you to go to Brian's website and take that test and take that survey. And Brian, I think your company provides a valuable service, and I'd love to have you back anytime with updates, because I think what we're going to be discussing, the kind of strategies that we are using today to protect people, are going to evolve, because the criminals, will reinvent new ways to steal from us. And I think we've just got to be just as vigilant to not only stay one step or at least even with them going forward. And I just thank you for your time. I also thank you for your service in the Air Force.
Thank you,
as I said, it's just great to see, what I love is I love to see good things happen to good people. And somebody who has lived such an exemplary life like you and your wife have, I love nothing better than to see great things happen to them and great things happen to great people. So I just want to congratulate you on all your success. And I want to thank you for all the people that you've helped protect themselves from these threats. And you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks. It's been an honor to be on here. Thank you, Mark. Take care.
Thanks so much.